Before he walked those marble halls of Congress, his blood stained the streets of Selma. In 2011, the Freedom Rider received the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Generations from now, when parents teach their children what is meant by courage, the story of John Lewis will come to mind.
Former President Barack Obama noting Lewis loved his country so much that he risked his life and his blood so that it might live up to its promise. His resolve tested but never wavered, returning year after year to the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give in.
And he brought his colleagues back with him, Democrats and Republicans marching together. Republican Congressman Kevin McCarthy calling it one of the greatest honors of his life.
I got arrested 40 times during the 60s. And since I've been in Congress, another 5 times.
Even though I was under arrest, he said, I smiled because I was on the right side of history. Lewis proudly served Georgia's 5th District for over 30 years.
Without John Lewis and the Civil Rights Movement, I would not be a poll worker. We would not have the freedom to vote.
He's changed the face of America. Such a great man, such a great loss.
In Washington, he was known as the conscience of Congress, the Democratic force who staged sit-ins in the Jim Crow South, sitting back down on the floor of the House, demanding gun reform.
Not next year, but now, today.
And he wasn't afraid to stand up to a president, skipping President Trump's inauguration and first State of the Union. Today, President Trump offered condolences, ordering flags to be lowered, tweeting he was saddened to hear the news of civil rights hero John Lewis passing. But Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said, you did not need to agree with John on many policy details to be awed by his life. In troubling times, Lewis always found a bright spot. One of John Lewis's last public appearances, standing here in Washington, D.C., boldly facing the White House, the words Black Lives Matter painted at his feet.
I do believe that as the sun set on John Lewis's life last night, the sun rises on a movement that will never die. Thank you, John. Rest in peace, my brother.
All right, Rachel Scott joins us now from Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, D.C. And Rachel, John Lewis called this time, right now, a special moment in our history.
That's exactly right. We're turning to this area back in front of the White House to see the words Black Lives Matter painted on this street. He gave a message of hope to the next generation that we will get there. Tom?
Rachel Scott leading us off tonight. Rachel, thank you for that. And the legacy, 6 decades, from Atlanta to Capitol Hill, one of the original Freedom Riders taking on the Jim Crow South, standing against segregation, discrimination, and demanding equal justice for all. His voice echoing through the halls of Congress, inspiring generations. Here's ABC Nightline anchor Byron Pitts.
Keep marching, keep sitting in, keep standing in, keep protesting until the sagging walls of segregation come tumbling down.
John Robert Lewis didn't simply witness history, he shaped it, marched for it, bled for it, not once, not twice, but every time he was called upon. As Lewis liked to put it, by just getting in the way.
We must cry, and we all must cry together, that we want our freedom and we want it now.
The Montgomery bus boycott drew the attention of one teenager, and soon civil rights would become John Lewis's life work. And it nearly killed him, as would become his habit. When John Lewis put his heart, his head followed. That's him, bruised, bandaged, shedding blood, and standing up when others could not or would not. That became Lewis's calling card. A sharecropper's son born in Troy, Alabama, 1940, back when segregation was law. Jim Crow, the enforcer. By 1963, at the age of 23, alongside Martin Luther King Jr., he was dubbed one of the Big Six leaders of the Civil Rights Movement.
My friends, let us not forget that we are involved in a serious social revolution.
Who helped plan the historic March on Washington. And on a high bridge in Selma, one of the low moments of the entire Civil Rights Movement. There out front, John Lewis. 600 peaceful protesters crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge into the harsh heat of history. It would be known as Bloody Sunday.